Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf bet, first page of Masechet Sanhedrin. Very, very exciting. Looking forward to another wonderful Masechet of learning together. Um, our last Masechet, our last series of Masechtot, known as Nezikin as a group, but the three Babas, Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, Baba Basra, the three of them together effectively outlined a wide variety, maybe the entire scope of potential litigation that one could involve from a monetary perspective, from how one engages in sale transactions and enforcing sale transactions all the way back in Baba Kama to damages. Dealing with the property, and then we had litigation over ownership of metaltalin and a variety of other things, claims in Bava Metzia. And then we had, and then of course in Bava Kama we had all the real estate and estate planning, etc., inheritance, exactly, in Basra. So the point is that we really have covered a wide scope of topics. But the question is now we have to litigate. So what's the court looking like? What's the judicial system looking like? And that's where we begin with Masechah Sanhedrin. Indeed, if we take a look at the beginning of Tosos, the first Tosos, Dine Mamanos Bishlosha, Achar Shishana Dinim Bitlasa Bave Mashmiyanu Bekama Danin Otam. That once we said the rules of all the laws in the three bavas, so then now we come to hear how many judges do we need to judge those cases. So, all right, so let's jump right in. Let me share my screen and we will get started. So here we go. So again, today we begin the laws of begin Sanhedrin, which details laws associated with Jewish courts, including judicial qualifications, jurisdiction, and various procedures. And we're going to open by listing the number of judges needed to hear various cases in a Mishnah that constitutes all of the Mishnayos for the first chapter of Sanhedrin. So the Mishnah lists the sizes of courts. So let's take a look. So Dine Mamanos, monetary cases, Bishlosha, they get 3 judges. Gezeos v'chavalos, robbery and bodily injury and wounding, they all get also get Bishlosha, also get 3 judges. And Rashbam, I almost I should catch myself right there. We are back to having Rashi. Very, very exciting. We've got Rashi back on our page. And so let's take a look at the we can do even the first Rashi. Let's do the first Rashi. Dine Mamas Bishlosha. We're supposed to have 3 judges in monetary cases. Buma Gemara Yalfinan Lahu. We're going to figure out why we have 3 judges in the Gemara. Gzelos. What does it mean by robbery? Kofer b'pikadon. If somebody denies having something that has been given to them to watch. As soon as somebody touches the thing that they are watching and they're not supposed to be dealing with it, they're not supposed to be touching it because they're just watching it, then they are considered a robber. They have engaged in that kind of theft. And similarly, somebody who takes something out of the hand of somebody else, that is also considered robbery. Havi Gazlan, that is also considered a robber. And now we have the source in the pasuk for how we know what Gzela is, and that's from a pasuk in Shmuel Bet. This pasuk deals with Benaiah, a warrior of David Amelech, that he faced an Egyptian, and what happened? And he came to the battle with a stick. It's like, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. So he brought a stick to a spear fight. Not a great idea. Well, what did he do? He was facing this Egyptian. V'yigzol eschanit miyad hamitzri. He stole away He grabbed out of the hand of the Egyptian his spear, and that was how he killed the Egyptian. So sometimes it's like in the movies where the guy takes away the gun from the person who doesn't know how to use the gun so well. So that is the story there. And so there you have it. That was, but we see that gzela in that situation really means sort of taking something away by force. Avalova, but if you had a borrower, the lo shilim, who does not pay back, lo mikri gazlan, that person is not considered a thief. They're not considered a gazlan, a robber. Demalve lahotzanitna, because when the person was given the money, they were given it to use. And so as a result, the fact that they don't have the money right now to pay you back is not a case of theft. Now, does the person owe you the money? Of course, but it's not a case of theft. Very important, Rashi, in connection with understanding the concepts of gzela and geneva. Okay, so nezek. So now continuing back into the Gemara, we're now in the first word on the second line. Nezek v'chatzi nezek. When it comes to damages and half damages, tashlumi chefel v'tashlumi arba v'chamisha v'shlosha. And when it comes to the paying of double damages and 4 times and 5 times, so if we remember, nezek is when if your ox gores somebody after they're a muad, after they've already done damages multiple times, or nezek is also the damage that you pay, is one of the 5 kinds of damages that you pay if you affirmatively injure somebody. And then chatzi nezek, that's the half damages. That's if your animal was a tam, then you only have to pay a half of the damages. Tashlumi kefil, of course, is double. That's if you get caught with your stealing. Tashlumi arba v'chamisha, and then 4 times and 5 times is if you steal exactly an ox or a goat. Then that will determine how much you have to pay for that. So an ox gets 5 times, and a sheep or a goat gets 4 times. And then ha'ones umefata v'hamefata v'hamotzi shemra b'shlosha. If one is sued as a for engage for.
But isn't the 4 and 5 only apply with tavach u'machar? It's not just stealing it, right?
Yes. You have to also slaughter it and or sell it. That's correct. Ha'onus v'hamefata hamotzi shemra b'shlosha. These are sexual related violations. One, ones is to engage in relations against the person's will. Mifata is to seduce a person, and a motzi shemra is to say that the person had engaged in premarital relations when in fact that had not been the case. So those are the 3, and again, those 2 are decided by courts of 3. Dibri Rebbe Meir. That's what Rebbe Meir says. V'chachamim omrim motzi shemra be'esrim v'shlosha. That actually, the last of those cases, a defamer, requires a court of 23, because it could result in, because if in fact the person who is accused of defaming was actually telling the truth, and in fact this woman had engaged in premarital relations, well, then she's going to be killed, and so as a result, that's why it becomes a capital case. So makos b'shlosha, if you have a case that involves lashes, that also requires a court of 3. Mishum Rabbi Yishmael amru b'esrim u'shlosha. But according to Rabbi Yishmael, you need 23, presumably because maybe the Gemara is going to explain it, but maybe it could be that when you engage in lashes, you end up accidentally killing the person. Ibor achodesh b'shlosha, if you add a day to the month in order to create basically a leap day in a month. That's because in the Jewish calendar, every month either has 29 or 30 days. So if we add a day to it and make it 30 days, that also requires 3. Ibor Hashana b'shlosha. And if we add a leap month to the year, so then also that's going to require 3. Meaning if we have Adar Aleph and Adar Bet. Divrei Rebbe Meir. That's what Rebbe Meir says. Rebbe Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. B'shlosha matchilin. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says no. We begin the discussion with 3 judges. V'chamishi nosim v'notin. We engage in the argument with 5 judges. V'gomrim b'shiva, and we finalize with 7 judges. And the Gemara is going to explain sort of what the situation is. V'im gamru b'gimel me'uberet. But if they finished in 3 with the 3 judges, I mean, if they did the whole thing with the 3 judges, that'll be okay. And we're going to just end there. Okay, smicha zikanim. What does that mean? Well, let's take a look in Rashi. So it's 1, 2, 3. We're in the narrow lines of Rashi. We're 9, 10, about 16 lines down in the narrow lines of Rashi, beginning of the line. Smicha zikanim. Al rosh par ha'olam davar shel tzibor. That this is referring to where the elders, if a mistake was made in a judgment, meaning in how one is supposed to perform a mitzvah, and so as a result, the entire community sinned based on this mistaken ruling. So then the elders will bring a special bull offering, and that bull offering is going to need a resting of hands on the head, and that will be done by 3 people, 3 elders on behalf of the community, and this means 3 judges. Okay, and Ba'arifas Egla Bishlosha. And then when it comes to the Egla Rufa, that's the calf who is decapitated because a body is found of a murdered victim. We'll talk afterwards, okay? Okay, thanks. A body is found of the murder victim, and we need to find out what the story is, and we don't know who killed them, and they don't find it. So as a result, they bring some people suggest that the whole ceremony is in order to help figure out who the murderer is. It's not, but others say that no, it's more of an opportunity to sort of cleanse oneself or cleanse the community from having been involved in a situation where somebody would get murdered on the road. And so they come and they chop the head off, they decapitate a calf over a running body of water. So according to Rabbi Shimon, that also requires 3 judges. Divrei Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Chamisha. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it requires 5. 5 judges is needed for each of these situations. Hachalitza v'hamiyun b'shlosha. When it comes to chalitza, that's the situation where a husband dies and leaves a wife with no children from him. And so as a result, the brothers of that wife are required to either marry the woman or effectively divorce her through a process called chalitza. And miyun, that's the process. Well, Rashi will tell us what it is. It's a few lines down. So if that was 15 lines before, so now it's about 18 lines down. Miyunin, Yusoma Katana. There was an orphan daughter of an orphan girl. This is meaning an orphan from her father. She doesn't have her father. That her mother and brothers marry her off. L'daita yotza below get b'miyun. Kolzman shalo gadla. She has the ability to go out on her own without actually a formal divorce, without a formal get, by saying, I refuse to be with this person, as long as she has not yet become an adult. Tachtav, underneath while married to the person. Ubishlosha be'inan, and we need to have 3 judges in front of whom she will engage in that refusal. Called the Tikkun Rabbanan, Kain Do Raisa Tikkun, that wherever the rabbis established a process, and this is something that was established by the rabbis, that the rabbis were concerned that an orphan girl would not have sufficient food. You can imagine the deprivation of society in that kind of situation, and how blessed we are to live in today's world, that notwithstanding all the things that are going on in today's world, but that because of the concern for the welfare of this little girl, they would say that, you know what, the mother and the brothers can marry her off. Umiyunin derabanan. And the rabbis now allow her to refuse. Demidda oraisa, because biblically, afilu miyan lobai, really, she doesn't even need any refusal. She could just literally walk out the door and not go through any kind of process, because de'ain kedushe katana klum, because the marriage of a minor is not considered any kind of marriage. Ella imkain kadshavia, unless her father marries her off. So only a father can do so, diksiv, as we see in Dvarim Barakov Bet, pasuk yud, pasuk tet zayin, that says, at biti natati liishazeh, I gave my daughter to this man. And that's highlighting that a father has the ability to marry off a minor daughter. Okay, so that's a whole series of situations. Now we continue on with now we go to a different topic of appraisal situations, and those also require three judges. Neta revai umaiser sheni, the produce of the fourth year of a growing, meaning that these are, if you have a plant, if you plant something and it has fruit in the fourth year, you need to bring that fruit to Yerushalayim. But if you want to redeem that fruit, or if you want to redeem Meiser Sheni, which also needs to be brought to Yerushalayim, She'ein Damav Yeduin, where it doesn't have a now known price. And what does that mean? Kigon Peiros Vehir Kivu. Maybe you had fruit and they got rotten. She'ein Lehem Shar B'Shuk. So you have no ability. There's not any of the produce in the marketplace at the moment. And so as a result, you need to figure out, well, how much am I supposed to pay for this rotten fruit if I want to redeem it? Because I'm supposed to bring it up to Yerushalayim, but I was negligent and didn't bring it up, and now it's gotten a little bit stale, and there isn't any of this fruit left in the marketplace. So how do I figure out how much it's worth? So that requires a three-judge panel. If you're evaluating the redemption for a consecrated item, that also requires three. And similarly, evaluating movable objects if you decide to donate them to the Beit HaMikdash. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Echad Mehen Kohen, and one of them has to be a Kohen, because the Kohanim are the ones who would potentially benefit from that donation. Karkos Tisha v'Kohen. And when it comes to land, it needs 9 with a Kohen. V'adam kayotza vehen. And similarly, if you need to appraise the value of a person, that would also require 10. So dine nefashos be'esrimu shlosha. Capital cases require 23 judges. Haroveya v'hanirba be'esrim v'shlosha. A case of bestiality, whether it was the beast that initiated the situation, which is a case of rova, and nirba is where the beast was the victim. Both of those, the beast is going to be killed along with the human, and so clearly the human case, that's a dine nefashos case, that's a capital case, and so even the animals gets judged similarly with a case of the court of 23. Shenemar v'haragta es ha'isha ve'es ha'behema, because the pasuk connects the killing of the woman with the animal. V'omer ve'es ha'behema ta'arogu. And similarly, it says in the previous pasuk that the animal should get killed. So and so as a result, as Rashi says, we'll do now we're 1, 2, 3, 8 lines up, and last word on the line in the narrow lines of the Rashi. Bekaf Gimel with 23. Ka'adam harova, like the person who engaged in the relation. De'itkush lahadadi, because they're connected to one another. V'haragta es ha'isha, because the pasuk says you killed the woman. Ve'et ha'behema, and the animal. Behema hainu rova. The animal is in the one case of the situation where the person engaged in the relations. Itkish behema leisha. And so we have a connection of the animal to the woman. Ma'isha bekaf gimel, at behema bekaf gimel. Similarly, the animal gets killed with 23. The omer ve'ez ha'behema ta'rogu v'nir b'ksiv. When in the case where the animal is the only one getting killed, that's a situation where the person is the victim, and an awful thing, but that's a situation where the person is the victim. So as a result, that's the story in that case. So now we continue with the next back into the Gemara, and now we're at let's see exactly where we are in the back into the Mishnah. Rather, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down in the wide lines of the Gemara. Shor haniskel, fourth word from the end of the line. Be'esrim u'shlosha. Similarly, when it comes to an ox that needs to be stoned, it also requires 23, meaning an ox that kills a person. Indeed, if we take a look in the second to last line of the Rashi, Shor sheniskel, shenagach adam b'meit, it gored a person and that person died. Shenemar hashur yisakel v'gam ba'alav yumat, that the ox will be stoned and the owner will be put to death. Now, in fact, the owner is not put to death, but rather the owner pays damages for the death that he caused. And so as a result, but the point is that connection of those two, that juxtaposition, shows that that just as a person would be put to death with 23, so too b'misa you need that, as the Mishnah continues, kemisas ba'alim kach misas hashor. Just as you would kill the owner, that's how you would kill the ox, meaning with the course case of 23. Haze'ev, v'ha'ari, v'ha'dov, v'ha'namer, v'ha'bardalis, v'ha'nachash. If you have all these wild animals, a wolf and a lion and a bear and a leopard, and a bardalis is often defined here as a polecat, v'ha'nachash, and a snake, misasan b'esrim u'shlosha. If you're going to kill them, they get killed with 23. And kol ha'kodem lahar gazacha, that if in fact somebody kills them first and thereby takes acquisition of the pelt, then it seems like that they would get to own the pelt. Rabbi Akiva Omer misasan b'esrim u'shlosha, and Rabbi Akiva says that they're killed with 23. Now, what's the difference between all these opinions? That, well, the Gemara is going to help us with that. So, ein danin lo es hashevet v'lo es hanavi hasheker v'lo es hakohen gadol ela al pi beis din shel shivim ve'echad. That when it comes to judging a tribe, if a tribe engaged in avodah zarah or a false prophet or a kohen gadol, then all of those require the ultimate court, the Sanhedrin, and that is a court of 71. And we don't go out to a discretionary war unless we have 71. Ela al pi beis din shel shivim echad. Ein mosivin al ir al ha'ir va'al ha'azarot ela al pi beis din shel shivim echad. And we won't add to the city of Yerushalayim, or that's the city that's being referred to, or to the Azarot, to the courtyards of the Beit HaMikdash, meaning the exact scale of those require a court of 71. Ein osin Sanhedrin l'shvatim, and we won't make the smaller Sanhedriot, Ein osin Sanhedriot l'shvatim, we won't make the smaller courts of 23 ela al pi beis din shel shivim ve'echad, except through the instruction of the court of 71, except for the top Sanhedrin. So the bottom line is that these courts of 23 are the courts that we referenced earlier that would deal with capital cases, and they were set up throughout. Sorry about that. They would be set up throughout the state, throughout the state, and they require 71 judges to set them up. Ein osin ir hanidachas ela al pi beis din shel shivim ve'echad. And we don't make a court of to judge a city that's going to be destroyed based on the fact that it engaged in idol worship, again, without a judge, without the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is the one that judges that. Ein osin ir hanidachas bisfar. Now, having said one rule about ir hanidachas, we'll note a couple others. One is that you can't do a city on the border of Israel can't become an ir hanidachas, and one can understand why, because if you were to destroy a border city, you would leave the country less protected, so that can't be. Now, that's not to say that you don't punish the people who are engaged in idolatry, but you won't destroy the entire town. V'lo shalosh, and we won't do 3 towns altogether. Avalosin achas oshtaim, but you can do 2 towns together. Sanhedrin gedola haisa shel shivim ve'echad, and we said the Sanhedrin needs to have 71. Ukitana esrim shel esrim v'chlosha, and smaller ones, smaller Sanhedrins are 23. Minayin legadola shehi shel shivim v'echad. How do I know that it's 71? Shenemar, because it says in Sefer Bamidbar, Esvali shivim ish miziknei Yisrael. Gather for me 70 men from the elders of Israel. Moshe al gabeyan, and Moshe was on top of them. Moshe was the leader of them. So that totals 71. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no, shivim. That is the 70 are the 70. It's not 71. It's the even number of 71. How do I know that the lesser Sanhedrins need to have 23 judges? Shenemar v'shavtu ha'eda v'hitzilu ha'eda. In the psukim in Bamidbar, Perek Lamed Hey, pasuk of Dalet and Kav Hey, it says, and the congregation will judge, and the congregation will save. So the congregation is referred to twice. These separate congregations, Eda Shofetet, Eda Matzelet. We can have a group of judges that is going to go towards the judging and convicting, and a group that is going to save. So Hare Kan Esrim. That results in us having a total so far of 20 judges. And how do I know that Eda is 10? Shenemar ad masai le'eda hara'a hazot. Until when will this evil congregation? And Rashi points out that pasuk, which is in Herek Yudalid pasuk of Zion in Bamidbar, is referring la'eda hara'a the meraglim ksiv. That's talking about the spies. And so who were the evil spies? Well, there were 12 spies in total, but Yatsu, Yoshua, V'Kalev. But Yoshua and Kalev weren't the evil. They had the right message then when they came back. So there were only 10 evil spies. So that is how we know. And remarkably, that is where we get the concept of minyan, that a minyan is an Eda, is a congregation, and the congregation needs to include 10 men. So uminayan lahavi ochlosha. So now we have 20. We have 10 that are voting to be generous, to convict, and 10 that are voting to acquit. And now, how do I know that we need to bring an additional 3? Mimash mishenemar lo tieh acharei l'rabim la'raot. Now, separately from the psukim that we were just citing before, it also says that we need to do not follow, this is Shmot Kaf Gimel Pasuk Bet, don't follow a majority for harm. Well, one second, what does that mean that we don't follow majority? Well, that implies that I do follow a majority for good. So im kain lama nemar acharei rabim lahatos. Why do I then say that we should follow the majority to be decided? Meaning that what is the next words? Meaning can't we just have the first part of that phraseology and say lo acharei rabim lataraos, and we would know acharei rabim lahatos. So why do we say that? Lo ka tayaschat l'tova l'hatayasaka l'ra'a. It's to tell us that when we figure out a majority for conviction, it's got to be different than a majority for acquittal. Exactly. So hatayaskala tova al piechat. One judge is sufficient to cause an acquittal, to be in your favor. But hatayat al pishnayim. But you need 2 judges to say liability, to be more towards liability, more towards conviction, in order to convict. Well, we had 10 and 10. So that means we need to add 2 more judges. So now we're up to 22, because we need 12 to convict and 10 to acquit in order for us to convict. But the aim based in shakul, as we turn to bet, I'm a bet. But we don't have an even number of judges. So what do? Mosifin alehan odachad. So we add another judge. Hare kan esrimu shlosha. And that's how we come up with 23. The kama yehei v'ir tehei ru'uyin l'Sanhedrin. How many people need to live together for us to have this court of 23 in that particular location? Me'ah ve'esrim. As long as there are 120 people, we need to have a court of 23. That's a very high percentage that are part of the court. But in any event, we need to have a high percentage of them in order to have the court. Rabbi Nechemia Omer. Of course, remember that in those days, cities and towns were much smaller than what we envision today. Masayim ushloshim. But Rabbi Nechemia says, no, you need 230, meaning you need 10 times the number. Why? Keneged sarei asarot, because the idea of these judges, remember that the psukim that talk about the judges involve, that there would be officers of tens, officers of hundreds, officers of thousands. So the point is that there's nothing less than an officer of 10. So you need to have at least 10 times the number of people in order to end up with 23 judges. So that is our Mishnah. And again, this is the Mishnah that will cover our entire parak. And now the Gemara wonders why the Mishnah listed robbery and wounding after it already mentioned monetary cases. Because if we turn back to the top of Bet Amud Aleph, the very beginning of our Gemara, the first words are Dine Mamanos B'Shlosha. Monetary cases are with 3. Gzelos v'chavalos b'shlosha. And robbery and wounding is with 3. Well, 1 second, aren't robbery and wounding cases of monetary cases? What's the difference? So that's the question that the Gemara is really beginning with.
Now in the Mishnah, we said, and we basically concluded the Mishnah saying that we cannot have a Beit Din Shakul, that you have to have an odd number, basically, right, to make the decide on the case.
Well,
So
we did
so
see.
if that's the case, how did we have a Beit Din of 10 that we mentioned earlier on?
No. We never said.
Yeah, we did say 10. We said a coin 9 plus
Please
the
let me
coin is
answer
10.
you. Please let me answer you. We said we were constructing, how do we know that it has to have 23? And the process of determining how we have 23 is we began by saying we know that it's got to have 20 because it needs
No,
to
that's not my
include.
question. I understand all of that. That's not the question.
All right. So where in our Mishnah did we say that we had a Beis Din of 10?
We said earlier on, we said first we had said that we had Beit Din of 3, then a Beit Din of 5, then 7, then 10. So that's a Beit Din Shakul. And then later we got to 23
We
and
never said.
71.
I don't know where can you point to me where we said a Beis Din of 10?
Yeah, it was earlier on. It was where was it said there? If I showed, it said not the Rabbi Mishlosha. Where was it? To go back here, Estri Mishlosh. No. We went back.
We said that an Eidah is 10, but it was part of the 23.
No, even before that. Before that, we said Yehuda Echad Akako Tisha. V'harkako Tisha v'Kohen. That's 10.
Oh, that was for appraisals.
I
Okay, so
understand
yes,
that.
I see what you're saying. Now I understand your question. Thank you for clarifying, because it was for appraisals, it said that, first of all, that was one opinion that said that. So remember that there was also the opinion of Rebbe Yehuda. Rebbe Yehuda said that we can have 70 judges on the Sanhedrin. We will see in the Gemara that there is a machlokes between whether or not you can have an even number of judges in certain cases. So you are what you're highlighting is the fact that there is a debate about this issue. God willing, we will get to that debate tomorrow. Okay, but you're absolutely right that it says pretty straight out that we should have an odd number of judges. That is not a universal opinion, and we will see others that disagree with that tomorrow.
That was my question.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you so much. So the point was that we had 10 with respect to evaluation, with respect to determining the value of real estate and a person, and so that was yes, you're absolutely right but that was the key. Is if we go back to that was Rebbe Yehuda. Rebbe Yehuda said that one of them had to be 10, about karkos tisha v'kohen, and one is 9 and a kohen, and similarly by evaluating a person. And again, Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says that you can have an even number of judges, because he specifically says that you can have 70 in the Sanhedrin. Okay, to gzelos The chavos lab dine mamanos nenu. 1 second. Aren't the cases of robbery and wounding examples of monetary cases? So I'm Rabbi Abahu. So answer number 1, and we're going to come up with 2 other approaches, God willing, tomorrow, but we'll be pause in the middle of Rabbi Abahu's analysis today. Let me scroll back so we'll get to that. Rabbi Abahu. So Mahain Katani. No, what the Gemara is saying is what is an example of the monetary cases? Mahain Dina Mamonos, Gzelos V'Kavalos. That what is an example of monetary cases? It's robbery and wounding. The aval hodos v'halvos lo. And what we're teaching by listing these specific items is to tell us that the same rule does not apply to admissions and loan of cases. That when we deal with a case that involves an admission or a loan, that is not necessarily going to have the same rule. Now, how is it not going to have the same rule? That's what we're going to begin with tomorrow. But utsricha, the Gemara points out, and we need to do it in this way. According to Rabbi Abahu. Rabbi Abahu says that we need to first reference monetary cases generally, and then specifically Gzelos and Chavalos, De'itana Dine Mamanos, because if we only reference Dine Mamanos, that the monetary laws, Hava Aminu Dafilo Das Valvos. If we just had Dine Mamanos Bishlosha, I would say that that implies every kind of Dine Mamanos, all kinds of Dine Mamanos, including admissions and loans. So Tana Gzelos Chavalos, and that's why we have to say specifically that we're dealing with robbery and wounding. The Tana Gzelos v'Chavalos, but if we just learned robbery and wounding, v'lo katane dine mamanos, and we didn't specifically mention the general category of monetary cases, what would I have thought that we were doing? Hava amina hu adin. I would have thought that the same rule applies to all monetary cases. Da'afilo das valvos, and even admissions and loans. And why were we mentioning specifically the cases of robbery and wounding? V'hai dekatani gzelos v'chavalos mishum de'iker gimel deksive v'gzelos v'chavalos ksive. That where does the Torah specifically indicate a need to have 3 judges? It's specifically when it comes to robbery. Gzelos, where does it say about robbery? How do I know that robbery, with respect to robbery and bodily injury? How do I know with respect to robbery? Diksiv, because the Torah says, and it's actually a multiple of psukim. You need to look both in Shmo Perakabet, Pasuk Zayin, and Chet. We're just going to quote from Pasuk Zayin here, but it's also from Pasuk Chet, which is the next Pasuk, and we'll read the 2 psukim, or the excerpts of the 2 psukim in just a moment. Tiksiv v'nikrav bal habayis el ha'elohim, that the homeowner will come to the judge. And so, and the next 2 psukim, the next pasuk also says, Al kol davar pesha asher yomar ki uzeh ad ha-Elohim yavo davar shneihem asher yarshiun Elohim yishalem shnayim l'reyehu. So we have 2 more references to Elohim as judges. And those obviously are Elohim references. The reason that I'm saying it that way is because that is not the holy Elohim of God, but rather it's the reference to a judge, to a human judge. So, and chavalos, and when it comes to wounding, mali chavel begufo, mali chavel b'mamono. Well, we already know that when it comes to robbery and you take away and you damage somebody's property, that you're going to have to go do that evaluation with 3 judges. Doesn't make a difference whether you injure the person or you injure their thing. Certainly, if you injure the person, you're going to have to also need 3 judges. So Tana Mahain Dine Mamanos. So what are these monetary cases where we say that we need 3 judges? Gzelos v'chavalos. And so therefore we say specifically it's robbery and bodily injury. And that teaches us about hodos valvos lo. But we will not require the same requirement with respect to admission cases, meaning if I admit that I owe Stan money. So that case does not need the same situation as a case that involves theft or bodily injury. And similarly, if Stan is trying to enforce a loan against me, we don't need the same situation. Now, what is that difference? Meaning, we now know that a different rule applies to admissions and loans from robbery and wounding. And the Gemara is about to tell us what that is. But for that detail, please stay tuned to tomorrow's daf. And again, tomorrow, God willing, we'll also highlight the fact, the point that I think Ken made, which is really a great point. Thank you, Ken, for pointing it out, because I had missed it the first time, is that the Mishnah itself, which says that you need an odd number of judges, also gave examples where it seemed like you had an even number of judges. So we will be touching on that issue, God willing, tomorrow. So wish everybody a wonderful day and looking forward to continuing
there's an
learning
interesting,
Have a good day.
What did you say, Ken?
there's an interesting, all right, I think I heard yesterday when we just quoted the pasuk, I'll call Devar Pesha, I'll Shur al Chamor, I'll sell Salma, I'll call Avida. And so what I heard is that how do you come from Bava, the Bava Kama Matzia Batra to Sanhedrin? So we say that Bava Batra deals with the damages and short and so forth. So the pasuk says al shor al chamor al seh, and then you come to, which is the whole Masechta. Then you come to Bava Metzia, and it starts Elu Metzia, and it says Shnai Mochsim Batalit. So Salma is the talit. And then the next, and then Kol Aveda, we talk Hezchat Tabatim, the issues with the with property, and one was lost. So if property is lost, you don't know who the property is. So that whole Masechta deals with, in some measure, deals with something that may have been lost when transferred.
Yep.
And then,
Okay.
and how do you resolve? And then we have all this. How do you resolve it? The pasuk goes on. Asher Yomar ki hu zeh al Elohim. So that we bring this to the Elohim, the judges that have to decide on the matter. So we can derive this from
Yep.
the pasuk.
Very nice. The order, what you're highlighting is the order of Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra, and then Sanhedrin follows the order of that pasuk. And we will actually be citing. I don't think we actually cited Qzeh. Oh, I know we did. Yeah, so we cited it earlier, and we're going to cite it again, God willing, tomorrow.
So that's the drasha that brings that all together.
Yeshikach. Very nice. Have a great day, everybody.